Hello, everybody. It is Lorinda, and I am here for week 25 of Bible Day Live. What a blessing. Week 25. Okay, so I will check over here to make sure that, yep, we are indeed live. Um, this has been an incredible journey, and we are doing Proverbs this week, Proverbs 25 to 30, 1 Kings 9 through 11, and 2 Chronicles 6 through 9, and Ecclesiastes 1 through 12. You can visit BibleRoom.org if you'd like to download a chronological Bible reading plan, or you can use your own plan to follow along. This is my commitment to include the Word of God in every single day of my life, and this sharing is going over highlights that I ran into during the week. So we will go ahead and do the screen share. And this is what came up as the theme for this week. Ruler switcheroo. Ruler switcheroo. Okay? And we came up with that because we are in Ecclesiastes, which represents the last days. The theologians agree that Solomon wrote that at the end of his life. Now, during the soundtrack this week, we realized that if this was the end of his life, then probably he was already told that, look, I visited you twice. I told you that I don't like you doing other gods. You have not been obedient. So I'm going to take the kingdom from you. I'm going to change who is in charge. But I'm going to let you stay king while you are alive, and I'm going to take the kingdom from your son. So if this book, Ecclesiastes, was written after Solomon had that knowledge, then it came to me this week that I needed to take his mindset into consideration, knowing that, hey, I've done all this stuff. I've been everywhere. I've done everything. I've been the richest man in the world. I've been the wisest man in the world, and I'm still going to lose the kingdom. My legacy is going to be that the kingdom will be lost. So of course, you're going to say it's all meaningless because look what you've done. All of your greatness, and you won't be able to hold on to your kingdom. So that realization came to me this week as we were talking through and reading through the lessons. Okay. And then we looked at Psalm 75 and 7, which says, it is God alone who judges, and he decides who will rise and who will fall. And you know what? We might very well be in 2025 in the midst of a regime change. We might be in the midst of witnessing that for ourselves right now with everything that's going on in the Middle East. And this verse clearly tells us that it is God who decides who is on the top and who's on the bottom, who our rulers are. And so, for 40 years, Solomon ruling over Egypt, Solomon ruling over Israel for those 40 years represented the Israel's golden years. So he was busy enhancing culture and prosperity and having great accomplishments such as building projects, including the temple, international commerce, diplomacy, and agriculture. He engaged culturally with other nations instead of being at war with them. His failures are well known, and he also accomplished a great deal with his God given wisdom. Okay, so yes, we are on week 25, and this is an image of the 2-day, 2-page topics doc, which can be downloaded in the link in the description. And you can also find the links to the soundtrack playlist. That's page 1, and here is page 2. We also finished up Proverbs this week. Now, one of the things that was part of Solomon's downfall was, yes, he was giving sacrifices to the Lord God of Israel, but he was also doing other, worshiping other gods. It was like he worshiped everybody, but no other gods means no other, right? Here it's mentioned Ashtoreth, Moloch, etc. These are other gods. The God of Israel was not exclusive. So, do you remember the story when Solomon, to show Solomon's great wisdom, when the two ladies came and the baby died during the night, and they were both saying, "It's my baby, it's my baby." And King Solomon was like, "Look, we're just going to split the baby in half, and you can have part of the baby and you have the other part." And the real mother said, "No, she can have the baby. Don't hurt the baby." And the mother that was not the real mother, she said, "Yeah, go ahead and split the baby in half." So Solomon gave the baby to the woman who said, "Don't hurt the child," because she was his mother. And that showed great wisdom. So this worshiping all the gods was his inclusive way of doing split the baby with everybody. So he just worshiped everybody, which does not work. Now, but for the sake of your father David, I will not do this while you are alive. That is what God told Solomon, that he was going to give his kingdom to his servant. Not even an heir, but to his servant. And sure enough, we'll find out that the 10 tribes was given to one of Solomon's servants. So now the Lord said to him, "Since you've not kept my covenant and have disobeyed my decrees, I will surely tear the kingdom away from you and give it to one of your servants." Now, when we look at the big picture here, where God is setting the scene so that we all can realize that it's impossible for you to keep all of the covenants and all of the decrees and do all of that stuff without God's grace, without the gift that he gave us in Messiah. But this is setting all that up to keep showing over and over and over again these failures so that we can come to the realization that we need a Savior. And one other thing was, I will let him be king of one tribe, which is his son. This is God speaking to Solomon. I will let him be king of one tribe for the sake of my servant David. That promise he made to David, that there would always be one of his descendants sitting on the throne of Israel. For the sake of my servant David, and for the sake of Jerusalem, my chosen city. Now, this was interesting that the wording that was actually used is "the Lord raised adversaries." So just like our theme this week, ruler switcheroo, it's time for the Lord to put things in motion so that the rulers change because his plan is unfolding. The Lord raised adversaries: Hadad, the Edomite, King Rezin of Damascus, and Jeroboam, that was the servant. Jeroboam was in charge of the labor force from the tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh. Remember, they were the tribes in the north. So Solomon's son will have one tribe, and the Jeroboam would have 10 tribes. Now, this story about Hadad, the Edomite, was that years before, King David had defeated Edom, and Joab, his army commander, had stayed to bury some of the Israelite soldiers who had died in battle. While they were there, they killed every man in Edom, and Joab and the army of Israel stayed there 6 months, taking care of that little detail. But Hadad, the same one who is now Solomon's adversary, David killed Hadad and all of those men in Edom, and Hadad and a few of his father's royal officials escaped and headed for Egypt, and Hadad was a little boy at that time. So this is one of the enemies, one of the adversaries that rose up against Solomon. The prophet Ahijah came to Jeroboam one day and told him, Solomon's son will have one tribe, so that the descendants of David, my servant, will continue to reign, shining like a lamp in Jerusalem, the city I have chosen to be the place for my name. So this prophet is letting Jeroboam know he's just a servant. He's like the foreman of the laborers that was repairing the wall and repairing different sites. But this is this prophet tearing his robe, giving him 10 pieces of the robe, and saying, you're going to be ruler of 10 of those tribes. Okay, so now I wanted to go over some of the notable proverbs that I took note of. Now, this one here, when I first read it in the King James Version, it just didn't make a lot of sense. But the NLT kind of gave it some more meaning. The spirit of man is the candle of the Lord, searching all the inward parts of the belly. The spirit of man is the candle of the Lord. Okay? So NLT, the Lord's light penetrates the human spirit, exposing every hidden motive. Now that is direct. That is the interpretation from the NLT translators, and I get that. The Lord's light penetrates the human spirit. The spirit of man is the candle of the Lord. So that was an interesting proverb. I make sure that's one of the ones I wrote down. Okay, and another one is 16:4. The Lord hath made all things for himself, yea, even the wicked for the day of evil. NLT, the Lord has made everything for his own purposes, even the wicked for the day of disaster. So when we read those things that the Lord raised an adversary, and we remember like the Lord used Babylon to judge Israel, then we can see how this verse right here makes sense. The Lord hath made all things for himself, yea, even the wicked for the day of evil. Proverbs 16:4. Looks like I got that twice. Okay, so that's a different one. But the sound heart is the life of the flesh, but envy the rottenness of the bones. Now I was like, what in the world is that? So this is the way NLT interprets it. A peaceful heart leads to a healthy body. Jealousy is like cancer in the bones. I got that for sure. So this NLT version is makes a strong and vivid point that I can definitely relate to. Okay, now we're going to talk about Ecclesiastes. And this picture here is supposed to be Solomon chasing the wind. I thought it was just so good. I actually used the program I used to do this was Midjourney. Midjourney is known for is an AI tool, and it's known for its pictures. But just this week, they came out with video, and it's pretty cool because you take the video from the image that you create. You can tell it how you want it to move it, or you can just tell it to guess how this image would move. And I told it this man should be chasing the wind. I thought it did a really, really good job in putting that together, because when we read in Ecclesiastes, so many of the verses or the stanzas end with the thought, it's like chasing the wind. So can you imagine how exhausted we we are in an endeavor that is impossible to obtain, like chasing the wind? Okay, so Ecclesiastes does challenge us to find purpose and satisfaction and meaning in life by remembering God and keeping his commandments. That is our great challenge here. And so Ecclesiastes is almost acting like a life coach, you know, telling us to run towards purpose and meaning while we keep God's commandments, and the things in that order and for that purpose is what will give us a good and happy life. So everything has an expiration date, and Ecclesiastes makes this very plain. We are stewards of our life. That's why I think of life as a project. As a project manager, I was a software development project manager, but I also think of life itself as a project, because in a real world project, one of the characteristics of it is it has a beginning and an end and a purpose, a stated purpose. That's what a project is. And life is exactly that way. So, what we are doing here is we are administering our life project. So, our time, our talent, our skills, our thoughts, what we think, and our treasures, our money, the things that we hold dear, all of that stuff has an expiration date. But we have to remember to keep first things first, because the world is under God's sovereign rule. Listening to, remembering, and obeying God is more important than giving him mindless offerings. As a matter of fact, when we get to the end of Ecclesiastes, Solomon concludes that his final conclusion is fear God and obey his commandments, for this is everybody's duty. God will judge us for everything we do, including every secret thing, whether good or bad. And the next one is this tool that I found that I was very happy to find, because you can listen to these different Bibles in audio, an audio Bible. Now, the NLT version that they have here, it feels like it is the NLT version before this latest one, but they're really close. If you follow along in your text in the physical book, which I kind of recommend, because then you're getting the hearing, you're seeing, and then you can take notes and things like that. You'll see that there's some slight differences, but that's still a good version online there. And of course, the King James Version. This BSB Bible, the Berean Study Bible, that's a really good one, and it's really close to this, to being like the ESV, really. But the ESV version, you have to have a subscription, and I'm sure it's not a lot, but I thought that was a good tool to share. So now we'll get into the different verses that I picked from Ecclesiastes that really stood out to me. So here is Ecclesiastes 2:24. So I decided there's nothing better than to enjoy food and drink and to find satisfaction in work. Then I realized that these pleasures are from the hand of God. For who can eat and enjoy anything apart from Him? God gives wisdom, knowledge, and joy to those who please Him. But if a sinner becomes wealthy, God takes the wealth away and gives it to those who please Him. This too is meaningless, like chasing the wind. So this is Solomon again. Okay, 3:14. I know that whatever God does is final. Nothing can be added to it or taken from it. God's purpose is that people should fear Him. His purpose, that really struck me. His purpose is for people to fear Him. Fear Him meaning reverence Him, praise Him, obey Him. Okay? Then I observed that most people are motivated to success because they envy their neighbors. But this too is meaningless, like chasing the wind. For every official is under orders from higher up, and matters of justice get lost in red tape and bureaucracy. Isn't that the truth? And it is a good thing to receive wealth from God and the good health to enjoy it, to enjoy your work and accept your lot in life. This is indeed a gift from God. God gives such people so busy. God keeps such people so busy enjoying life that they take no time to brood over the past. Now, I know people. I know people that know people that part about accept your lot in life would say that just gives people permission not to be innovative and not to try very hard because, this is just the hand I've been dealt. But I don't think that's what it's saying here. For me, what it means is I accept the fact that I'm a Black woman. That's not going to change. But the things that I can change, the things that I do desire to make my life better, then I should go for those things. Because if I've already put God first, I've already made Him the center of my affection, that, okay, Lord, my intention is to do your will. After that, God gives us this whole big pot of decisions that we can make about how we want our lives to go. And so accepting your lot in life just means some things you can't change. But there are so many things that we can just decide that we're going to make better. And so many things that we can just decide that this is not going to be my life. Like when I was just talking to my husband this morning and telling him that, I feel like I quit my way to this beautiful life that I have right now, because I remembered when I first got out of high school, I worked as a cashier at a fast food. Well, it wasn't a fast food place, it was like a convenience store. But this convenience store was on a highway to nowhere, it seemed like. I mean, it was a dark 4-lane highway between Goldsboro and Kinston in North Carolina, and there's just nothing out there. And this man figured out, he said something like, "Oh, you're a smart one." I don't know what he was trying to show me or teach me, or whatever I said to him. He came back with the response, "Oh, you're a smart one." So a few days later, he comes in. I hadn't even been there like a week and a half, maybe. I mean, a very short time. He comes in and says, "I'm going to make you assistant manager. So here's the key. Here's the little stick where the little stick is to measure the gas every night. This is where the money goes. Count it and do all that stuff." And now basically saying, "Here's the key. Be here by yourself in the middle of nowhere in this store." I was so taken aback. I'm like, I don't want to do that. And he gave me a raise, 10 whole cent for being the assistant manager out there in danger in the middle of nowhere. I quit. I'm like, I am not putting myself in this kind of trouble. Then there was another time that I worked at a grocery store, and I hated it. Hated it. I came home. I told my husband how much I hated it, and he was like, "Quit." And that's exactly what I did. I had to go and get me some skills that I didn't have to do all of that cashier stuff, standing up all that long time, picking up heavy milk and dog food and all these big buckets of stuff all day long. I hated it. So we went to the pawn store. We got a typewriter. I still have one of those typewriters. It was a pink Brother electric typewriter. I stayed home. I cooked these meals. I cleaned the house, and I taught myself how to type. Then I went to a temp agency because then I knew I could speak, so I could answer the phone or something. At least I could sit down, right? Not have to be running around, standing up on my feet. But I needed to know how to type. They said I needed to type 50 words a minute or something. And I didn't know how to type at all. Because in high school, I didn't take typing. I didn't take home ec. I took carpentry. I wanted to be like Jesus. I heard somebody say that Jesus was a carpenter. So I wanted to do carpentry too. So I had to figure out, what skill do I need to be able to get a better job. And so I did that. I ended up at Farm Bureau as a data entry person, and I stayed there a few years. And then I figured out that it was a good old boy network, and I couldn't go past a certain level there. Every time I went up for promotion, "Oh, Lorinda, you need this class." "Oh, okay." I'll go take the class, pass the class, get the certification, whatever I needed. Then I go back, and then they tell me, "Oh, you need something else." And that kept happening. And I was like, okay, I got to get away from here because these people don't mean me well. And so I quit there. And then I went to the next two places. I didn't quit those places. I was promoted within there, I became the secretary at a college. And then from there was this lady that said, "You don't belong here in the secretary place. You belong in the technology center," because I was always interested in technology. And then from there, I was hired at a Fortune 500 company because I was curious about the technology that ran the college. And so I learned all this stuff. And then I went on, and the next thing that happened, I quit that thing because I was in partnership. And the last, so it was always about, if I didn't feel like this job was in alignment with what I felt like God had for me, and if it started to wear away at my spirit, I had to go. I had to go. I felt like God would take care of me. I was willing to work. I was a very hard worker. But I also used my God given right to just go after something better for myself. So I felt like I have just quit my way to this beautiful life that I have right now. And so I believe that is what this Ecclesiastes 2 is teaching us, is that we are responsible for how our lives turn out, because we're the ones that choose to remember God, to keep his commandments, to, just like this webcast, this live stream here, it is so I remember that this is something that I've dedicated to the Lord. Okay, 7:11 through 14. Wisdom is even better when you have money. Both are a benefit as you go through life. Wisdom and money can get you almost anything, but only wisdom can save your life. Accept the way God does things, for who can straighten what God has made crooked. Enjoy prosperity while you can, but when hard times strike, realize that both come from God. Remember that nothing is certain in life. 9 and 10. Whatsoever thy hand findeth to do, do it with all thy might. I know it says, do it with thy might. For there is no work, nor device, nor knowledge, nor wisdom in the grave whither thou goest. Now I'll put the NLT version here because it reads differently, but the KJV version is one that I had memorized. So I thought it was interesting the way the NLT put it. Whatever you do, do well. For when you go to the grave, there will be no work or planning or knowledge or wisdom. A feast is made for laughter, and wine maketh merry, but money answereth all things. That's a popular verse. I have heard that a lot. NOT puts it, a party gives laughter, wine gives happiness, and money gives everything. I don't know about that money gives everything. I really like the King James Version there. Money answers all things. Because you can throw some money at something and make problems go away. But money is a tool. So I really don't look at money being able to give something. So I don't really like that verse in NLT. Now, this one here, a lot of Christian traders use this one. Cast thy bread upon the waters, for thou shalt find it after many days. Give a portion to 7, and also to 8, for thou knowest not what evil shall be upon the earth. NOT says, send your grain across the seas, and in time profits will flow back to you. But divide your investments among many places, for you do not know what risks might lie ahead. So they use this verse to say that your investments should be diversified, and you should send your grain across the seas is like doing international trade. So the conclusion is that Ecclesiastes acts like a life coach, or we can think of it like a life coach. The world is under God's sovereign rule. We have to remember that the things that we want, the things that we desire, the things that we prefer are after the things that God rules. We have choices. We really do have choices. But we must temper our choices by the will of God. Okay, and so that is what I wanted to share this week, and I appreciate you sharing your time with me. And I don't know if you can hear this music, but it is brand new, and I love it so much. Okay, I created it with AI, and I was trying to have something that really showed faith. That was the topic, and I was talking about the Bible, and it was a little short video. So that is the summertime coming. I don't know if how it works over here. Right now, it's the volume is on 39, so I'm going to turn it down here to 26 and see if that works. But I love this music so much. So God bless you. Pray that your week is great, and your next week until anything is